Good morning, and thank you for joining the Child Care Providers Question and Answer virtual town hall. We decided to keep it in terms of the number of people, keep the invitations to a certain limit because I wanted to make certain that we had an opportunity to discuss these issues. And needless to say, this has been a challenging time for everyone, particularly the already struggling child care industry, David. And I know that you represent the industry across the state of Texas. There have been some bright spots. TWC and Local Workforce Board region, Reagan and Lori and the local contractors, the child care group, have been responsive and helpful in getting needed federal rule waivers and getting support and resources to providers in a timely manner. Policymakers on each level of government and corporate leaders have also seen the importance and role of child care. The child care plays in our economy and in our communities. The SBA Paycheck Protection Program and related loans are available to child care providers as a financial resource. Now, I understand there may be some issues in terms of the timeliness of it, but at least it's in, we have a program and people should be able to participate in that particular program to get financial resources. Yes, there have in fact been some missteps. We must not complicate things unnecessarily, and we must keep our eye on directing all children to our professionals in existing quality care programs. And that is why we're here. The missteps had providers calling my office, asking for direction and needing to get some directions and answers. And this is what this meeting is all about. I thought together a team of professionals, I brought together a team of professionals that should be able to help us out today. And on the panel, we will have Reagan Miller, who frankly is the person at TWC that all of this goes through, and she can answer questions, not only the high level questions, but also point providers with particularity to who they need to contact. Lori Larea, my partner for many years in workforce issues. In fact, just last week, I think it was, we had the first virtual job fair here in Dallas and had, what, about 1,700 participants to participate in the job. Virtual. So I appreciate that, Laurie, and all the things that you do. Ahmad Goree. Let's see, Ahmad Goree. Did he used to work for me in the office, Luana? Oh, yeah. It's been years ago. Ahmad has been with the Small Business Administration. How many years now, Ahmad? You're muted.
10 years.
10?
What?
It's been 10 years now?
Wow, that's incredible.
Time flies.
Time flies. Ahmad is the lead economic development specialist and public information officer. Tabitha Holmes, executive director of the WISE Academy and the WISE CASA. Judith Collins, small business leader and strategist. And Melanie Rubin. Where's Melanie? Melanie was on here. There's Melanie right here. And we have Melanie Rubin, obviously with the child care group here in Dallas. So we have a great panel of persons here today that should be able to address questions, Carl, that you may have as a policymaker and providers that you have as providers. And so what I'd like to do is to open up, and Reagan, let's start with you. Reagan, please give us a statewide update in terms of child care.
Yes, thank you. Happy to be here. So I think, as all of you know, to address the needs of these COVID essential workers, we established a new essential worker child care program for a subset of COVID essential workers. The governor's executive order identified the broader all frontline essential workers, and the TWC COVID essential workers are a subset of those. We've set out a prioritized list of who's eligible, and we created a simplified eligibility process. So we wanted to create something that didn't take a lot of paperwork and a lot of checking, so we could quickly enroll people in the care that they needed. So enrollment's based on self-attestation for the parent that they're a frontline essential worker and that they're making below 150% of the state's median income. So we put that in place for all of the new essential workers, but we also knew that we had current kids in care, those that were already being served. So we had to look at how do we support providers understanding that they had an existing caseload to support. We implemented a 100% parent share of cost waiver, right? The state is picking up 100% of the cost of care. So parents at this point are not being asked to contribute any amounts. We certainly understand that most parents are facing some significant economic challenges at this time. We're also allowing childcare to extend for longer periods of time if you've either temporarily or permanently lost your job. Generally, our rules place a 3-month limit, and that is no longer in place during this pandemic. We're also paying for absences for kids who can't be there. We understand that some kids may be sick. The safest place is always at home with your family. And so right now we are paying for absences for children who don't attend. And we implemented very quickly at the end of March, a policy to pay closed providers. We understand that this industry itself is very fragile, and we wanted to see how we could support providers who were temporarily closed. Now, we are continuing to look at how we structure our support for closed providers to determine if we'll make any adjustments on how we meet the needs. The most expedient way to do this was just to continue to paying for kids based on the number of referrals that were in place at the time the provider closed. So we do want to continue to look at how we support this industry, understanding that we're going to need all of these childcare providers when folks go back to work. We also did some analysis on increased costs for childcare. And so we know that it's costing more now to provide care because you've got smaller group sizes. So in addition to paying for kids who aren't there, we also implemented a 25% enhanced reimbursement rate. So if the board would normally pay you $1,000 in your regular billing cycle, they're going to make an additional payment of $250. So it's 25% above whatever the board would have normally paid you. We're hopeful that coupling the payment for absences and this 25% enhanced rate is providing the additional financial support to address those higher costs of care. We also deployed the Frontline Availability Portal. So on the Governor's Frontline Childcare website, we implemented an availability portal, and we're really happy that we're seeing some great use across the state. It's an easy process. We wanted parents to know where there are actually spaces available for them to take their kids. We know one of the hardest things is actually trying to find space, having to call multiple providers to determine where can I take my kid. So this is a voluntary system. We're asking all child care programs to update their information at least weekly. It's a simple process. You put in your permit number, and then you say how many infants, slots, toddler, preschool, and school age you have. And the portal actually sends out a reminder. So if you haven't updated your information in the past 6 days, it automatically sends you a reminder to have you update that information. If providers don't want to use the system, it's not a mandate. They just don't have information indicating how many spaces they have available. Their information is still there. It's just not as detailed as providers who are using the system. And so in Dallas, a couple of days ago, the numbers were you have a total of 1,135 providers. 460 have reported that they're closed. So it's about 39%. 675 are open. And of those that are open, 61% are accepting subsidy referrals. So that's about 415 providers that are accepting subsidy referrals. And you had about 10,500 spaces available. Infants is always a big challenge. You had about 1,400 infant slots, 2,600 toddler slots, 3,200 preschool, and 3,900 school age. So you have space available based on provider reporting in all of your age categories. We've also been looking at other supports for child care programs. Since we're the Workforce Commission, we've got a lot of information on other workforce supports. So TWC's Office of Employer Initiatives hosted a conference call with our boards to talk about resources that are available for childcare providers. And then following this conference call, we posted all of the information on our childcare COVID webpage. So we put up a two-page overview and some presentation slides summarizing the CARES Act provisions related to unemployment insurance, pandemic unemployment insurance, and then SBA loans. And we also posted an FAQ. So we're hoping that those are resources that childcare programs can take a look at when they have questions. And then I guess the last thing I'll note is that this week, HHSC's childcare licensing sent out an email to all of the regulated programs that they oversee. And this was following the governor's executive order to reopen Texas. So it applies to all programs. This is not a subsidy policy. This is the policy of the state, clarifying that although the governor's executive order opened up to some additional industries, that at this point in time, childcare still remains available only for essential workers. The governor's strike force has been working closely with the health professionals that are on the strike force. And so this decision was informed by those discussions with the strike force health professionals. So we're continuing to coordinate with them to understand when that policy might change. And those are my updates.
One.
Senator, I think you're muted.
Okay, is that better? Okay. Reagan, thank you very much. And I know there'll be a series of questions for you. I even have some for you myself. But let's go to Lori Larea so we can get a perspective of what's going on locally here in this particular region. Lori?
Yes, Senator, thank you so much. And Reagan, can't thank you enough. I know she's been the glue in this that's making everything come together, because we have had an interesting turn, I think, of very promising practices and unusual waivers that have gotten us this far. Luckily, in Dallas, we are not financially challenged for this project, so there is money. Reagan talked about there are openings at centers. There are also budgetary dollars to take care of essential worker children, up to possibly even 7,000 slots. We don't think there's going to be that kind of a response. We believe that many people have already found their care. One of the things we were not involved in, and well, let me just say a few more thanks to Childcare Group. Childcare Group has done yeoman's work. They have been our contractor for many, many years. They have been a staple in this community. Before the state was looking, they got involved in trying to find products for childcare centers. They are working diligently with Early Matters Dallas to find enough products so that people can stay clean, the hygiene can be practiced, gloves, masks, anything that the centers need, but particularly cleaning supplies and food. These are hard to come by at this time, but the state has done a statewide project now where they're looking for suppliers and sort of elevating child care to the same level as healthcare. It is essential, and we need that ability to walk in and buy something. They should not be standing on line for Kroger goods. Kroger's wonderful, but everything's sold out. The shelves are empty. They were not being prioritized, and I'm very thankful that the state is prioritizing childcare. Beyond that, we have had some conversation, I heard it again with Mesquite, about ISDs opening emergency centers. The childcare centers are not full. Reagan's numbers tell you we've got plenty of room for kids and we've got the money. Emergency centers are very expensive and they're not sustainable, in our opinion. And they really are not, if you build it, they will come, but they don't come en masse. I think we've had 2 in the area. YMCA and Big Thought have tried. 17 children, maybe. And they're probably going to shutter those and transfer those youth to our childcare centers, which is what we have asked. As Reagan mentioned, and we mentioned last time we were on the call, the best place for your child is at home. We know that's stressful. And if there is a parent in the home who is resourceful and can take care of the children, we don't want to use these subsidies for that family. The subsidies are for families who have no other recourse than licensed care. But we have so much licensed care available. There shouldn't be a problem. The Frontline website is a resource. I don't think our centers are using it to its maximum capacity. It's sort of one more thing to do. You know, I don't want to update that every Sunday with my slot level. And what if I misreport and I lose out on kids? get in there. Get in there. It's like being a Hilton property and you're not on the Hilton website. You know, everybody's going to that website statewide to look for slots, look for seats. If you're not on there, they're not going to find you. So we're hopeful that everybody picks up the pace. Tarrant County's beating us on this, and you know how that makes me mad. So we need to elevate our game when it comes to participating in the frontline system and taking advantage of these subsidies. The income rates so dramatically changed on the subsidies, dramatically. This is not the same audience. This is a new audience. This could be a nurse working. Probably not a two professional family, but a nurse working, making right at $100,000. You know, if you've got a family of four at 118,000, I think it is 114,000, you're eligible for these subsidies. Mesquite was talking this morning about possibly popping up a Mesquite ISD location. That would be parent pay. This other process using the centers is parent subsidy. It's kind of a win-win. The centers are there, the money is there, let's get it done. So from the local level, we've had nothing but, I think, growing trust and success. Tabitha, we respect you, your words, your ability to get people listening, and that is very, very helpful to us. We have Melanie Rubin, who is amazing at this. Tori Manis is also on the call, and Sherry. So we've got people who do nothing but childcare 24/7, and I do mean 24/7, trying to make sure that we make the best care system in Dallas.
Needless to say, Lori, thank you very much for being here. And we have an all-star panel of professionals here for the providers to be able to ask questions of, make certain that if there are issues that you are coming up on that you are able to talk to, not only the child care providers throughout the state, but also if you're having business issues, we have the SBA here, as well as a business strategist here. They can be of assistance. So what I want to do is, Tabitha, I wanted to, you as a provider, you've heard the conversation thus far. What are some of the concerns? What are some of the concerns of the child care community? Can't hear you. Unmute. Are you muted? We can't hear you. Hold for 1 minute. Hold on for 1 second. We can't hear you. Can you hear me? Am I muted? Ooh. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Tabitha, we can't hear you at this point.
Can the host unmute her?
That's what we're trying to do.
Okay, now I can hear.
Okay, now, okay, all right. Go ahead.
Good morning, and let me just say to Senator West, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know I've bothered you for many years. Even when your children were here in our center, and now they're in college and doing other things. Thank you for always allowing me to be a thorn in your side.
Thank you for allowing me to be your state senator.
To Miss Lorea and to Miss Miller. Miss Miller, I don't know you personally, but I want to say thank you from working from a state level for us. We appreciate how quickly you are expedited to make sure that we were able to continue without a break in service and providing care for all of our families within the community. So thank you so much. From our standpoint, from the childcare community, we, as you mentioned, Ms. Lorea, you've kind of covered some of the things that I wanted to share, but we are running behind Tarrant County. And my goal is to make sure that we are equal or even doing a much better job than Tarrant County, because here in Dallas, I'm in Cedar Hill, it's the best of the Southwest. And we want to always make sure that we are providing a premier service for our entire community in the district. So thank you so much. But one of the issues that I believe we are having is our parents are not really informed. And I believe that if there was a way that we can make sure that the parents are aware about the front line and about the funding that's available, that would help out. Even as far as the centers that are open and available, some of the parents are not aware of how to even find or locate those centers. So I'm not exactly for sure. Some of the providers, we've been putting our heads together. We've been putting information out on Facebook, all types of social media to make sure our families know that free is not always the best. And then that this is what we do on a day-to-day basis. So we want to make sure that the parents are aware that this is not a 20-minute setup, a pop-up shop. We have been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years, keeping good records. We are accredited centers. We are Texas Rising Star Centers, and we provide that quality care every single day. We have over 2,200 standards that we have to make sure we meet every single day, beyond a shadow of doubt. We are monitored by, some of us are monitored by 5 different entities in 1 year, and all of those are unannounced. We never ever know when they're gonna pop up. And so for us to have to maintain almost 3,000 standards and laws and rules that we have to make sure we're following, that's difficult, that's tough, but some of us have continued to maintain a clean record year after year after year. And I believe, once again, that we're gonna revisit this 5-star quality with Texas Rising Star to make people want to become a Texas Rising Star provider, and that those of us that can make it to the 5-star, that we've proven over the years that we have maintained a level of quality. When we think about restaurants and hotels, we think a 5-star is top quality. Well, we would like 5 stars within the child care facility for us to be recognized, and some resources and funding to go along with that to make other providers feel like, hey, this is where I want to get to. I see what they're doing. They're being recognized. Their quality. They have this. We would like to be a part of that. That's one of the issues that I wanted to stress. And another thing, we so love the increase, but we are still chasing Tarrant County on reimbursements as well. So I know, that's asking a lot, but quality care costs. And if we could really try to figure out a way to put a dollar amount on quality care, just as if when the schools do the ADA, how they have their amount per day, if we could come up with a dollar amount for child care, for the quality care instead of the market rate, I think we'll be hitting the nail on the head to be able to provide teachers with pay that is equitable, because our teachers, our classroom instructors participate in trainings annually. They make more decisions in 1 minute than a brain surgeon, because you have so many children that you are trying to make sure that are all on task. You have those purposeful planned activities every single day, and you're trying to shape little minds. So we make more decisions in 1 minute than a brain surgeon. So I just feel like I want to always make sure I allow myself to know that I appreciate them, but I also would like to be able to compensate them to show them a little bit more of how much I care. I'm not for sure how much you want me to talk, Senator, because I can go on and on. Oh, one other thing, we are receiving a pushback from parents because of this essential worker issue. And so now that Governor Abbott is opening up, Lord have mercy, the economy, it's frightening to me personally, my own opinion. It's frightening that people are going to get back out now. And when they're trying to go to work, we have to actually tell them, we cannot accept your children back in our facilities. So I don't know how we can revisit that. But I'm truly comfortable with only caring for those essential workers that have to get out to work. But the funding, the resources and support we do need, and we thank you for what you've already done. But we need to do a little bit more. I'm asking for just a little bit more. So any way that I can help, thank you for bringing us to the table. Any way that I can help.
Let me ask Reagan to address that question. With the economy opening back up, the governor opening back up Texas, obviously workers that are non-essential are going back to work, and they need childcare. How is that issue being reconciled?
So we have had discussions with the governor's task force on childcare. Our chair, Elaine Mendoza, is a member of the governor's strike force. And so she has been communicating back to the strike force the concerns that we're hearing from parents about their inability to access childcare when they go back to work. We understand that's a challenge. At this point, the health professionals were concerned about opening child up more broadly to non-essential workers. But I think they all understand that this is an issue. The frontlinechildcare.texas.gov has information on there. These are private pay options for babysitters and nannies that can come into the home. But again, those can be very expensive options that aren't readily available for all workers. So the strike force is aware that this is an issue.
Okay, but nothing has been resolved on it. Luana, you need to make certain you make a note of that, so when I visit with the governor again, I can deal with that issue. Let me just make certain I understand the question that needs to be asked. With Texas, with the governor announcing that Texas will be opening up tomorrow, there will be a need for non-essential workers who go back to work for childcare. Childcare facilities under the governor's order are not allowed to open to non-essential workers, correct?
Yes, sir.
There's been no reconciliation of that issue or resolving that particular issue for non-essential workers in childcare. Gotcha.
But
All right.
Senator, the thing we want to talk about is that the reason they didn't open childcare is a health concern. Healthcare professionals, the health department in Dallas has cautioned us about aggregating large numbers of children in childcare centers. So that's why we have only 10 children to a caregiver, 6 feet apart, which we know doesn't work with 4-year-olds. But we are really having a problem reconciling in our own minds what is in the best interest of our community. Is it to reopen childcare, or is it to see how this goes till he talks again, I think on the 24th, and then understand, I mean, we're only opening at 25%. So there will be some workers, I think, that could trade care, perhaps, that work in the same company. We need to be conscious that opening may not be the best choice right now.
Okay, very good. That's a very good perspective right there.
And I also might I add that even with allowing families to have the nannies, most of them will be the childcare providers who have been furloughed. And so we also need to be careful with that, because of course, if they are receiving a higher pay, when it's time for us to go back to some sort of normalcy, there's going to be a shortage of staff in childcare facilities. Because if I can watch one child at a higher rate, I would take that versus going back into a classroom of about 15 children, kind of close to minimum wage. But that's not what we pay.
Let me ask Melanie, are there, in terms of your providers, are there any issues that you want to point out that your providers are having?
Well, I echo a lot of the gratitude for the way things have done. Licensing, TWC, our local board, everyone really came together in a way I've never seen before, which was so wonderful to see. I do think we need to do a better job of publicizing the front line. I think we need to reach out to the faith community and get the word out to parents, to access this. The fact that the eligibility has changed, I don't think we've done a good enough job of communicating that. So I don't think parents know that it would be free for them and that it's available, and that we need to get the word out a much better way. I think, you know, and I know there's a story in the paper today, but again, I think it needs to be emphasizing the fact that these funds are available and that these providers are high quality and accessible. So I think through the media and through the faith community, we need to do a better job. I also think we need to look at, you know, how to layer resources. These providers still need other resources to get the equipment, to sanitize, to do other programs. And are we being strategic about layering the dollars that are coming to the city and the county and using the subsidy money to pay for direct care and using those other funding streams to pay for other necessary elements for the providers? So I think there's some thinking and some work that needs to be done within the structure. And then I am also going to want to springboard to the fact that this has become such a relevant issue. And I do think the community and our policymakers and our corporate leaders recognize childcare. How do we springboard into the session and into thinking, what do we do to reshape and get some permanent supports in place? So I can't miss that opportunity to just springboard a little bit.
I bet you David Fincher, and we're going to get to David here in a few minutes. And I saw Bill Pewitt was on here also. I don't see him right now, but I'm pretty certain they're going to have some ideas about that. But before we just open it up to everyone, what I want to do is ask Judith Collins, who's a business strategist. They may very well be child care providers, obviously in business, that want to try to figure out how to get involved in the PPP program. Can you kind of give them some pointers on exactly what they need to be doing, Judith?
Sure. So it really depends on the structure, like how each organization structure their childcare business. And by that, I mean, whether it's a sole proprietor, LLC, S Corp, or C Corp. So I'll get into that in a minute. But what we're finding and with these PPP forms is that they get kicked back if they're not completely, or they're not completed properly. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that as well. But let me just leave you with, I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things or 5 steps that if you are a business, whether it's childcare or not, if you want to apply for the PPP, keep these steps in mind. First, you need to understand what your business structure is. Second, because you need to understand what your business structure is, you pay taxes a certain way. So there's certain forms like Schedule C if you're, say, a sole member LLC, or if you are a sole member S Corp or G Corp. There's Schedule K1. So there's certain tax forms that you need to address either with your accountant, a bookkeeper, or TurboTax. That's first before you get to the PPP form. So business structure, how you pay your taxes based on your form. And then on each of those forms, there's gonna be your net earnings or gross wage or tips earnings, different semantics for that. So say you're an LLC, but you're a sole member. So your earnings will be on a Schedule C on line 31. On K1 schedule, it would be on line 14. So you would take that earning and you will apply the PPP formula to it. So the PPP formula is you divide by 12. So that assumes that you've been in business for 12 months. So the law allows some businesses that start on January 2020, for example, to apply for PPP. So if you're 1099, you probably fit into that category, but you're not dividing by 12 at that point, you're dividing by 2. So we just want to establish through the PPP formula your average monthly pay so that we can 2.5 it or multiply it by 2.5, or that comes down to 2.5 months of payroll. So once you get that formulated and properly formulated, then we can move on to the PPP form, because the PPP form asks for that. So the number one issue why PPP forms get kicked back is precisely the calculation. So first you have to understand your structure, how you pay your taxes first, and then apply the formula and put it on the PPP form. So the PPP form, in addition to the formula, also has questions 5 and 6 where you have to signature or put your initials next to some questions. People overlook that sometimes and it gets kicked back. And then on occasion, there's an addendum. So some of you all have many businesses, many structures. And so in that case, you got to take a separate piece of document and you have to highlight what the name of those businesses are, the NAICS code, so many other things I can list in a minute. So if you have that extra or many businesses, what I recommend you do is check to see which one made a profit, because the bottom line is when you look at that PPP form or your tax forms, let's go back to the tax form, and it's 0. If your net earnings is 0 or your gross earnings is 0, then you're not eligible for the PPP. Does that make sense? Now, sometimes you scratch your head and you say, wait a minute, I know I made some profits. How come my tax advisor, my tax preparer said I didn't? And the answer is he or she probably has a really good reason, because tax preparers are in business to shelter your income from taxes. Like sometimes we don't have to pay a heavy tax burden, and the law allows us to do that. So sometimes your tax preparer, in thinking about managing your tax burden, might net earn you at 0. Does that make any sense to anybody? So it's important that you check with them when you do that. So once again, business structure. How do I pay my taxes? Check in with my tax person if I have one. Then on that tax form, determine your net income or your gross earnings. Once you do that, you put it on the PPP form. When you get to the PPP form, make sure the formula is calculated correctly and make sure you initials. And then on the back of the form, there are all these self-certification. It's kind of like a contract that says, I pledge that everything that I put on this form and with it is valid. And then you sign it. You are on it, the onus is on you as a business owner to make sure what you provide when you turn in that PPP application is correct, or the government will come back and get you, talk to you about what you've done, not the bank. But anyways, the bank needs all of that information and it uploads them because they have so much volume. They'll take that PP form and they'll take all the documentation that goes with it and they'll upload it into E-Tran, which is an SBA system. And it quickly processes the information and spits out a confirmation number. So
did you say quickly?
Well, it's not operating quickly lately. That's correct. Yeah, that was, we were so disappointed with that. We were hoping that second round was going to be so smooth, but.
Well, we have Ahmad on there. He can talk about that in a second.
Yeah. But so one more time, business structure, tax form, determine your net and gross income, then the PPP form, and then the supporting documentation that goes with that. That's just the beginning. Once you get it, it's a whole nother story.
And let's transition over to Ahmad, so Ahmad can give us the SBA perspective on this. Judith, thank you very much. Mr. Gorey?
Thank you, Senator, for having me again. You know, this is a really important conversation because a lot of the child care provider facilities are really ideal for the two programs that are available for small businesses. You know, child care provider facilities are trying to figure out how they're going to maintain a steady stream of income, and most importantly, how they're going to pay their employees. And the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program and the Paycheck Protection Program are both great programs for these type of industry of businesses. So a little bit about the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. So this program was put into place after the whole pandemic situation happened and the president declared a national disaster. At that point, he allocated about $50 billion immediately that small businesses and nonprofits can take advantage of who have been affected by COVID-19. This loan is a working capital loan. So it's for those businesses and nonprofits that have experienced losses and as a result are having issues with taking care of their operating expenses such as utilities, rent, mortgage, and any other operating costs, including payroll. So these loans are up to $2 million with an interest rate of 3.75 for for-profit businesses, 2.75 for nonprofit businesses, up to 30 years, depending on the repayment ability. What's really good about this loan program is it has an advance that's connected to it, which means that a business can get up to $10,000, $1,000 per employee, and that portion of the loan is forgiven. So I encourage child care providers and child care facilities to look at this program. We will be opening up the second round of this funding here soon, so pay attention to our website when that happens. Real quickly on the Paycheck Protection Program, that is the most popular program that you've been hearing about all in the news. These loans are strictly for that purpose, for payroll. We are looking to keep employees on payroll, or if you've laid them off, bring them back. And of course, child care providers, you are ideal for this type of program. These loans are up to $10 million with an interest rate of 1% over a course of 2 years. But the best part about this program is the forgivable portion. So if you use at least 75% for payroll costs, then that portion of the loan will be forgiven. If you use an additional 25% for operating costs like your rent, your utilities, your mortgage, and other expenses, then that portion of the loan will be forgiven, and ultimately 100% forgivable loan. So I encourage child care providers to really look into this. These loans are through banking institutions. Like the first round of loans, the money ran out. The second round, SBA is really paying attention to those smaller loans and those smaller banks. I know there was issues between the larger banks versus the smaller banks. And as a result, SBA has limited the way that applications are going to be submitted. So banks have a certain amount of applications they could submit at one time. And actually some of the smaller banks have been carved out of time where they're able to submit their applications instead of the larger banks submitting at the same time. So we've really streamlined the process to make sure that every small business has a fair shot at these funds. So we want to make sure that this demographic on this call has the information available to start taking advantage of these particular programs. You're muted, Senator, I believe.
Okay, here, is that better? Okay. Representative Sherman, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Sorry, who did you say?
Representative Carl Sherman.
Thank you, Senator West. I too appreciate this very informative presentation on the child care relief portion of the CARES Act. My question really is germane to the child care providers that Reagan mentioned during her presentation. I think she mentioned that approximately 39% of the child care providers have had to close their operations. Do we know where those child care providers' locations are, the site locations? Because what I'm especially concerned about is child care provider deserts. And certainly it's going to be challenging enough for us to get through this and rebound. Many are saying we're not going to see really getting back to where the economy was until sometime spring of 2023. But if folks can't find childcare for their children to be able to get to work, then we're going to simply exacerbate the problem. So could you speak about the 460, I think, child care providers that you said had closed, where those facilities are?
So we are getting information from childcare licensing each day. That information does include the addresses. We have not mapped any particular areas of the state, but we do have the ability to do that. I'll tell you that we have actually seen, we're tracking the number of providers that accept subsidies and their open and closed status each day. And we're actually seeing providers opening back up. So early on, we saw the number of closed providers rising, and now we're actually seeing it decline. So we're hopeful that providers are potentially opening, but we'd be happy to look into any additional detail. Like I said, childcare licensing is producing all of this. Providers are required to report to childcare licensing when they close or when they reopen. I'll also tell you at the state level, we've looked at the number of closed providers in relation to Texas Rising Star. And we're very happy to see that of all of our TRS providers, only about, it's still about 500 have closed. That actually dropped down now to about 480. Again, we're seeing those open up. So we have over 2/3 of our TRS providers still open for business. But yes, we agree that we do need to continue looking at this to understand what the long-term impacts are going to be.
And I would be very glad to map the data we have for Dallas County and get that out to everybody. We'll either do it by zip code or get it on an actual map, but it's an interesting conversation. Happy to help on that.
Great.
Thank
great.
you. Thank you.
And Carl, that's a good suggestion. Reagan, let me know what I need to do in order to get the agency to expedite that map for the entire state, specifically by senatorial and representative districts for certain.
Thank you, Senator West. And it would also be of value, I think, to know what she mentioned. I think Reagan mentioned that several are reopening, and certainly it would be important to know the causation for those daycare centers reopening. I'd like to think it's because they're getting the supplemental support, but I don't want to assume anything, because at the end of the day, we want this to be sustainable.
Representative Sherman, my name is Carrie Fowler. I'm the District Director for Childcare Licensing in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And a lot of the operations chose to close because of health concerns, and it was temporary. It was not a permanent solution for them. It was just to see how things would go. And so many of our operations are reopening, and we are doing what we can to provide them the resources they need to get cleaning supplies, equipment, and to put them in touch with people that can assist with that. So also a lot of our operations that closed were in the public schools, after school programs, and since the school buildings closed, they couldn't operate there. And so once that is resolved, I think those will reopen. We have had very few that have decided to not open or to close permanently, which is good. So we're hopeful that as things become back to normal, that we'll be able to have more in operation and our childcare capacity will be back to normal.
Very well. Well, normal is going to be certainly different. I think many corporations have discovered that their employees can still be productive and profitable working from home. So I'm not sure how many businesses are going to start allowing their employees to work from home and how that might affect childcare needs.
Of course, that'll be something that we'll be monitoring too, but I think we will have more of a normal capacity for childcare than we currently do, as operations recognize that it's safe for them to reopen.
Thank you. And thank you again, Senator West.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us also, Representative Sherman. What I want to do now is to make certain that we open it up to questions from childcare providers and others that are on here. But one thing's for certain, there is a safety net at the state level for our childcare providers that provide services to children that qualify for this particular program. Let me see, can I get a slide up in terms of the eligibility requirements. This is the slide that I'm talking to you about, and it shows you who's considered essential. I would, if I'm you, I would make sure you get a copy of this so you'll know that. Let's go down, and obviously here's the different income levels based on family size. And so that kind of gives you an idea. Let's hold it right there for a second. And a family of four, just like Lori was talking about, $118,000, they would qualify for this particular program. A family of 10, a family of 7, et cetera, et cetera. And so just know that you can take a picture of this and then utilize it for your own purposes as a flyer to send out to the people that you have in your database. Make sure you send it out to social media and know that they're available. And then so just kind of make certain that you have this information. So now let's turn our attention to questions that some of you might have. So let me start. If you can wave your hand, if you have a question.
Yes, I can.
David?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk for a couple of minutes. I have three issues that I'd like to bring forward. I don't have necessarily a solution for any of them, but there are things that we ought to be aware of as we try to move forward. One of them is going out and setting up new childcare centers when we have plenty of capacity in the childcare centers that are already open and trying to survive. And by the way, some of them won't survive. I was happy to hear Carrie say that not many have said they're closing permanently, but some will close permanently. So as we make steps, we need to be sure that that stays in the front of our mind as well. An example of that would be DISD choosing to set up 2 elementary schools as childcare centers, emergency childcare centers. And let me stipulate up front that I'm certain that their facilities will be first class, that their teachers will be great, that it wouldn't be a problem having a child there. But in my estimation, every child that goes to one of those schools is a child going away from a child care center that's struggling already. And so DISD doesn't need to do that to survive. YMCA doesn't need to do that to survive. Big Thought doesn't need to do that to survive, but child care centers do need to do that to survive. The second issue that I'd like for us to keep in our mind is when we open businesses up and allow those workers to go back, we shouldn't have to read between the lines and say, you can go back to work, but you can't have childcare. And the reason that I've heard today, and the reason that was in the written communication that I received from the Texas Department of Health and Human Services, said public health needs indicate that we should not serve, that we should still continue only serving the families of essential workers. That's a pretty broad statement and doesn't give me any comfort level at all to think that they've really looked at that, because from the very start, we've said that in order for our essential workers to take care of the needs that the community has, it's okay for a child care center to open if they follow certain protocols, which we have done. But then we say it's not okay for a child care center to follow those same protocols for children of non-essential workers. That's a mixed message if there ever was one. So, and I'm using that as an example of the things that we've done. Now, just as one more example, the Fox 4 News at 9 last evening did a story, and they used the word childcare access in that story, but the story was really about those non-essential workers who may be called back to work but be unable to go because they don't have access to safe childcare. And once they're called back to work, they may lose their unemployment benefits, which they're depending upon to feed their family right now. And they did show a childcare or a business owner that said, I can't reopen because I don't have access to childcare. Well, the reason we don't have access to childcare is that decision by the government, I'll say the governor, based on input from people, but I'm not sure that public health needs indicate is enough of an explanation of their thought process. That's like, I'm from the government, trust me, type thing. So we need to keep these child care centers at the forefront of their mind, and their survival at the forefront of our minds. And if we can be safe with one group of kids, then surely we can be safe with another group of kids. And I appreciate you. I appreciate it again, Senator. Thank you so much for doing this and for including me in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Any other questions, observations?
Senator,
Rusty?
oh, go ahead.
Lori?
I just have a question for Ahmad.
Rusty, Lori?
Ahmad, isn't there a minimum number of employees to apply for the paycheck protection?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lori. So we are looking at small businesses under 500 employees. And it's also available for sole proprietors, individual contractors, and self-employed. So it's not really a minimum, but up to 500 employees.
So I had heard that there was a payroll minimum, like you had to have 5 paid employees. Maybe that's for another grant, but that is not true of the payroll.
No, ma'am. As I said, self-employed individuals have the opportunity to apply for the program.
Thank you so much.
And Senator, if I could address David's comment about, I'm not our unemployment insurance expert, but I do want folks to know that the agency is looking at those good cause reasons associated with an inability to accept a job as it relates to eligibility for unemployment insurance.
Yes, ma'am. I did know that, and I appreciate you bringing it up. But at least speaking for my customers, most of them would like to have a paycheck, not an unemployment benefit. And I've heard anecdotally that they can make more money. They can make more money drawing their unemployment and other possible benefits than they can with a paycheck. But I still believe in people desiring to work and earn their own money instead of having to depend on the government. And as I mentioned, that Fox 4 thing, there were 2 possible decisions that could alleviate the problem that they were talking about. One of them was for the government to continue and increase their duration of their unemployment benefits. The other one seemed much more simple to me, and that was simply to say, okay, you can care for those kids you can go to your child care center and ask them to take your child back that you had to take out because you were a non-essential worker and had to stay home. So, thank you.
Rusty, you had a question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Senator West, for allowing me to be a part of this panel. My wife and I have been in business 43 years, so needless to say, we've never experienced anything that comes close to what we're experiencing presently. We have 5 centers spread out from Forney all the way to Richardson. We care for about, before the pandemic hit, a little over 1,000 children a day between the 5. What we have experienced so far is the ones that are coming back, we're not allowing the parents in the centers. We're shooting the temperature for every child that comes through the door to make sure that there's nobody that is going to create a risk inside our center. We've not had a single child sick. The parents have been completely okay with it because they understand that we're in extreme times right now. And so we have to take extreme measures. But I think my question and my wife's question is that at what point does it become okay to open us up for anyone that wants to enroll their child? Because I heard this story yesterday about the governor in Maine has closed that state down of 1,100,000, and they have a total of 33 COVID-19 cases. And so sometimes the thought process is not completely thought through before you make decisions based on the parents that bring their kids to my school, which they don't want to find someplace else. They know their teacher, their children have their friends at our centers. And so to say that, well, just get them a nanny for a while, or, you know, put them in a home situation, sometimes you're directing them into a situation that's unlicensed and unregistered, which Carrie will testify that every time we have an administrative meeting, that's one of the subjects we bring up is how do we keep children from being in those kind of environments? So that's what we need help with.
Rusty, you make a really excellent point, and I'm hopeful that we can move forward.
Yeah.
I think the situation.
Point well taken, Rusty. Point well taken.
I think when we see more activity open, and we're sure we can meet the need with supplies and so forth. But I have one more pitch, please, Senator. Jobs Now. We have thousands of essential jobs available in Dallas County. Please send people to us. We have tons of jobs. The minute they take one of those jobs, they can put their kids back in care and we'll subsidize it.
Okay, other providers, do you have any questions? We have a whole lot of providers on here, and this is your opportunity to talk with the state and also local, and also the child care group. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Well, I'm hoping that everyone in the nation that you'll be able to use as, as providers, and needless to say, you know who the contact persons are that you can contact Alvin's office if you have additional questions. And do everything we can in order to answer questions. Tori, did you have anything that you wanted to add? Tori, did you?
Thank you. Sorry, I was on mute. First of all, thank you, Senator, for arranging
Tori,
this. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity to provide this information to the provider community. Childcare Group is very proud to be able to work with Workforce Solutions and the state to administer this program. And we want to do everything we can to support and sustain our wonderful providers who are standing on the front lines right now. We'll be there today and we'll be there tomorrow. So I know we're working on additional supplies to go out to the open centers that are still out with their doors open. And as we see more families going back to work, I hope we will be able to continue to drive the use of the frontline system and help connect more parents with care in these open provider centers.
Senator, could I ask one more question? Do we know of any cases of COVID-19 within a licensed regulated child care center?
This is Carrie. Yes, we have had several. Since March 16th, we've had, I think, 16 across my 42 county area. Some of those are children and some of them are staff. So there are some, but it's not very many.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I know you were having difficulty. The question was about whether or not there have been COVID-19 cases in childcare. Carrie reported 16 across the multiple counties. So we've seen it, we've heard about it. Thankfully, we've heard of more, David, that have actually come back testing not negative, but we are worried about the care providers. We do know that children can be little carriers, and we're very worried about older providers perhaps being introducing the virus there and causing dramatic harm. But yeah, there have been a few. Luckily, not anything significant lately. So this is a good thing.
So what's the process when you do get one, Carrie?
Yes, the operation needs to notify us, and then they're also required to notify the local health authorities to get their guidance on what to do, whether they need to close for cleaning or close for quarantine, and it depends on the situation. So typically we just want to know that there has been a case so that we can also report it and track it. And then we'll just check to make sure that you followed through with what the health department has guided you to do.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Senator West, may I ask a question?
Sure you can.
Okay. Because we have children staying at home with the parents, we've sometimes received phone calls that our parents are so stressed out. And we do know that the abuse cases have increased. So as providers for us, if they are already enrolled in our program, some providers were wanting to know if we could assist those families for those parents who are getting stressed out. To give them a break maybe for a day or two so they can actually work at home. So I don't know who the question is for.
Well, it would seem to me, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Reagan or Carrie or Melanie, if, as I understand it, if a licensed provider has that child already in their census and that child is not attending, you still can collect the subsidy for that child. And so if you're still collecting the subsidy for that child, then it would seem as though whether that child comes the full amount of time or part of their time, you would still be able to be compensated for that child and to provide, quote unquote, the relief that you're talking about in that situation for that particular parent. Am I wrong about that, Reagan?
Yes, they are being reimbursed. In order for that child to come into the center, they do have to meet that essential worker status. So if they are an essential worker, and you would have to ensure that your facility is following those local control orders on group size.
Well, we're following and doing everything that we're supposed to be doing. Cleaning is not new to us. That's something we do on a daily basis throughout the day. But I'm saying as far as those parents that are really feeling the stress, that are crying out for help, how do we help those parents? Or what resources can we provide for those families?
Yes, and I am aware that the DFPS prevention intervention group has been looking at these types of issues for parents where the chance of abuse is increasing. So we haven't had an opportunity to meet with them recently, but they are aware. I'm not sure exactly what resources they have made available.
Unfortunately, guys, I'm going to have to kind of wind it down. We have like about 3 minutes left. Questions like that, if you have additional questions, make certain that you provide them to our office. I'll put it in the chat box and we will try to answer those questions for you. But hopefully you have gleaned some good information from this particular webinar or meeting. I guess it's a webinar, I guess. And we'll continue to do these into the future. But obviously childcare has been and continues to be very important to me as your state senator. And so with that, we're going to say good morning to each and every one of you. And I wish each and every one of you your safety and also Godspeed. Thank you very much for attending.
Thanks, Senator.
Thank you.